Great pleasure right now to welcome a man who's written a very interesting book, and the topic is something I've always liked. It's sports. It's called 40 by 40, the luckiest sports fan alive, 40 true sports adventures before the age of 40. We're joined by Shergul Arshad from up in my hometown today, New York City. How are you, Shergul?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Good to have a chance to talk to you. I had a chance to read through the book, and I guess you did something that I think a lot of guys think about doing, but they don't even either get a chance to do it, or maybe they just don't have the the wherewithal to do it. Not only just visiting all these great sporting events, but putting it down in a book form. It must have been a lot of fun for you.
It definitely was. I mean, this book recollects both attending some pretty major sporting events, such as Super Bowls and World Series and World Cups and whatnot, but also participating at some levels, things like batting practice at Fenway or playing golf at St. Andrews. And I think where hopefully listeners and readers will get excited will be the fact that this was not done spending top dollar and, sort of the corporate way. It was mainly using lots of connections, friendships, and, pursuit of passion, if you will, putting yourself in the good situation.
Yeah, I guess somebody who may be a sports writer or a sports announcer that covers a lot of these events, that's one way to do it. But if you're not in that particular business, there's some money involved. I mean, you got to find your way to get to these events, don't you?
Well, there's a couple resourceful tactics. So, for example, if listeners have any kind of work travel as part of their everyday schedule, I happen to be in a sales and business development job. I've been in the internet e-commerce world, so I'll have conferences and or trips to different regions such as New York or the Bay Area, and I've tried to line up trips around a big sporting event. So I've gone to the All-Star game in San Francisco or the baseball All-Star game in New York City. Actually, the 2004, the Red Sox, I'm a huge New England sports fan, kind of grew up in that area.
Right.
And I made it out to St. Louis when the Red Sox won on an eBay trip. I was working for eBay, and I lined up a business trip around the World Series dates.
Don't remind me about the 2004 Red Sox. I'm a Yankee fan.
Uh-oh. Well, we should just skip subject.
No, I can take it.
Hope you're not a Jets fan too.
Yes. Well, you guys are playing very well. We'll get to that in a little bit. But you mentioned your business, but you originally grew up in Florence, Italy. I guess you spent the first 8-10 years of your life there?
Yeah, that's right. So I'm originally from Florence, Italy, which was your first guess with a name like Shergul Arshad, right?
Not really, but...
So my mom's Italian. My dad's originally from Pakistan, grew up in Boston, and met her over there. I was obviously a soccer fan first and foremost. That was my first love, but when I moved over to Boston in 1981, the same year Larry Bird arrived. It was great times to get hooked on basketball, and shortly thereafter, both the Red Sox and Patriots ended up doing well in the mid-'80s, and obviously had a great last decade. So it was easy to hook on to American sports in Boston.
How is it, though? I mean, it is a bit of a culture shock growing up for your first 8-10 years, whatever it was, in Europe like that, to come to America. Obviously, the weather was different from what you were used to in Italy to New England, but you took right away to American sports?
Yeah, so and part of the book talks about this transition. Sports is one of the great equalizers and one of the great ways to socially adapt for a young boy. Music, sports, girls, I mean, there's not much else for
That's right.
an 11-year-old. Actually, when you're 11, girls don't even factor into the equation.
Maybe not for a couple more years.
So I was 11, and the thing that was kind of challenging was I actually did not have any accent. I grew up fully bilingual. So kids expected a lot more out of me. They might have cut me more slack had I had a really strong Italian accent. So the way it worked out is I was I used sports and immersed myself into the rules and the teams, and probably obviously went a little too far, I guess.
Well, I know I grew up in New York, and a lot of my friends, you learn to read by reading the sports section of the newspaper. I guess about 5 or 6 years old, and that's how you kind of get into it. Obviously, you watch it on TV and listen on the radio. Did you do something like that as well?
Well, I had a dad who was passionate, so he helped educate me in a hurry. And yes, obviously, I think newspaper, Boston Globe, watching watching the Celtics early on and Red Sox. And then in 1986, I was in high school. My dad got tickets to a World Series Red Sox-Mets game, and that got me hooked on the thrill of actually attending these big events. I mean, there's once I experienced it once, I knew it was something I had to try to get to again. I didn't know I'd get there 40 more times, but
the famous Game 6 in 1986. So you weren't there, were you, at Shea, were you?
Fortunately not. I'd like to think I might have made a difference. I was in Game 5, which the Red Sox won.
Great World Series then. And well, let's talk, I know there's so many in the book, we just want to give a taste of one or two, some of your favorite events that you've been to.
Sure. So, Patriots Super Bowl, I think just the experience of going to a Super Bowl is something I highly recommend to everyone at least once in their life. I've been lucky enough to go to 6, and I do have a good friend of mine who has a marketing contact at Visa who gets them 2 face value tickets every year. So my connection is obviously a couple degrees of separation away, but it allows me to go to these events. And when the Patriots finally won against St. Louis and New Orleans, that was right up at the top. It was pure disbelief. It was my first experience of being live at a culminating victory where one of my teams wins a trophy, and the Vince Lombardi trophy to boot. So that was definitely probably number one. Number two for me was the Italian World Cup in 2006. I'd obviously been an Italian kid rooting for the Italians my whole life, and we had several heartbreaks, including 1994 when I was fortunate enough to be the Italian team's translator here in the U.S. And I got to travel around with the team and even practice on the field, so I was very emotionally invested with the Italian team. And in 2006, I went over with my dad to Germany, and we followed the team the last few games and got ourselves into the final. There's all kinds of stories in the book about the art of negotiating your way into games.
Yeah, that is a skill in itself. If you don't have a press pass to get into some of these events, but just running down, you mentioned the 6 Super Bowls, World Cup, World Series, NBA Finals, Major League All-Star games, and even the Masters and the Stanley Cup, just to name a couple of others. So you've really had a chance to go around, and this book is filled with those great stories. And did you kind of, how long into this project did you decide to write it down, or did you do a lot of it from memory, or how did you do that?
The 2000s were so generous to Boston sports. It's the type of decade I wish upon every city, but not in my lifetime. I'd like to have 9 more decades in Boston like this last one. But what was great was, we were experiencing championships and championship moments so furiously, and email had become such a part of everyday society as it is today. I started to email my buddies stories of going to games, and probably about 2004 or so, one of my friends said, you should save all these emails and one day put them down as a book. So that's, I think, what precipitated the book.
Well, it's a fun read for those that have been to some of these events, or if you've never been, you just get a feeling of what it's like, because you're a real fan, too. I mean, it's not just a sports writer doing this. You're an actual fan of the game, and I think that's what comes through in the book.
Yeah, and I think I had a couple of brief experiences, each for less than a year when I worked in the world of sports, and I have to tell you, it's far different when you're wearing a suit and you can't act like a stupid fan. And there's something great about going with your buddies and having a few beers and just acting like a fan. You could be, as I am I actually work for Time Warner. It's a serious job, serious company, but I can act like the inner child that's within all of us every Sunday when I go to a Patriots game, or even more so at these big events. So
That's
yes,
right.
I'm definitely a passionate fan.
Well, the name of the book is called 40 by 40, The Luckiest Sports Fan Alive. Shergul Arshad is the author of the book. Shergul, give out a website people get a hold of you or the book.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter, which is just the handle is Shergul, Shergul. But the website for the book, you can find it on Amazon, but there's lots of details on photos on my site as well, which is www.40x40sports.com. So it's the number 40 and then x40sports.com.
Great. Well, I appreciate you taking a few minutes. I know you've been doing a lot of these, but when you get the next 40 down, I'd love to have you back on again.
I just hope I live that long.
That's right. Well, I can't say go Patriots because as a Jet fan, but I do appreciate their talent because they're a good team.
Well, it's been a lot of fun, and
Shergul Arshad, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.